G'day, Verno. Welcome to our first podcast.
Hello. Welcome to everyone. And pretty exciting to kick it off, I think.
So the week that was, we had an interesting week post our budget update, which has been an interesting time in the market. We've got a couple of clients on the go and we managed to have offers out. What are you thinking is and feeling in the market at the moment?
Oh, look, it's you can argue on both sides. There's a lot of noise out there. That's for sure. That's how I'm feeling. Like out in the market itself, there are potentially less people at some properties, but then at other properties, it's business as usual. So it just depends on how you're looking at it and what lens you look at what's going on at the moment, because everyone's got a different opinion on it, as with everything.
Yeah, totally. I think there's a really big difference between the mum and dad shoppers that are out there looking for their forever home for their kids and their family, and then obviously our investors as well. We've had a couple of investors that have been a bit spooked, but I guess the underlying factor for us is that we're not out there buying property based on a tax break.
Not at all.
For our investors, we're out there buying property that is sitting well in the market, going to see fantastic growth over time, hits the yield expectations that they're after. Our mum and dads that we're shopping for, we had a couple of offers out. Unfortunately, we were unsuccessful, but that's another story.
Save that for the next podcast.
We'll save that for the next one. But yeah, I think overall the market's still buoyant. We're still seeing great pricing in Brisbane. If anything, it's slowed down a little, which is kind of nice. People have got a little bit more time to be making decisions, sometimes even getting a second look in, which is,
that was unheard of.
agreed.
Only 6 months ago that you'd be in a property would even, we'd get notified on it, perhaps a little bit early on a Tuesday. The general public would know about it on the Wednesday, Thursday. And then it'd be sometimes sold before, not even make it to the opens on the weekend, or we'd have that little tiny window.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. So I think,
yeah.
the market's still buoyant and it's still there. And as we know by the numbers as well, Brisbane is still tracking as one of the best places to be buying around the country still. So
And best places to live.
of course.
Brisbane. We're not from here originally. We saw the opportunity here back in around COVID, and I mean, goodness me, that's what we're approaching 6 years
Years, 7
now,
years almost,
if you
yeah.
can believe.
Crazy.
And it seemed like and looked like a golden opportunity then. But then if you compare here to, for example, Sydney or Melbourne and all these other more established markets, Brisbane and Queensland as a whole, we always say to each other, everyone has been up here living the dream. They've had their big blocks, they've had their big homes,
Boats, pools,
the toys, the wide streets out the
parking on
front,
the
and
street,
all the parking. It's always
free
fun.
parking at rail
Yeah,
stations.
yeah,
There's
it's
so many
always
things.
funny when we're talking with, we do a lot of buying, obviously, for people that never see the property and interstate investors. And, we're at the front and we turn up and you're always walking around and you're like, and if you notice, there's these big wide streets, big verges out front, and all this space for parking, it's just not like that in other places.
It
And
certainly
so
isn't.
going back to what you were saying there before as well about what we're looking for when we're purchasing CGT and all these big, as I said, yes, think about it, take it into consideration. But we're looking at the underlying fundamentals. We want to find, and that's what we do every time, we're finding great homes in great pockets. What are the schools around?
Yeah,
What's the lifestyle there?
yeah,
What's the access for getting to work and all of those sorts of things?
yeah.
So
So much more to it than a tax break.
very much so, very much so. So you had a bit of a funny interaction this week with
I did.
with some offers going on and an engagement with an agent. Well, obviously, something that we do for our clients is act as that intermediary. Tell us a bit, Jade, about the interaction, let's call it, that you had just on the weekend just gone.
Look, it was an interesting one. It was with an agent who doesn't actually normally work in the area that we were purchasing. We know all the agents in and around that area really well, and so it was my first time interacting with them. And I think the level of frustration that buyers face, we face it as well.
Yes.
We get the same rubbish come through to
Noise.
us as well.
Yeah.
And when you sort of you talk with one agent who's the lead agent,
Yeah.
and then they pass you on to someone else who you've never met. They don't know who you are. They've been essentially told to draw up the contract because you submitted an offer. I know I was the first person to put the offer in.
I think
And then
you
I
put it in. You had it in at like 11 in the
Oh,
morning.
12:30 that 12
Yeah.
o'clock that day on Saturday. We knew we wanted it. I wanted to be first on the table. I put in an offer and was happy to get a deal done kind of straight away. And I discussed with the selling agent the same kind of thing, wanted to understand how it is they operate because they do all
Yeah.
operate really differently. Some want to negotiate. Some just want you to go in with your best and final straight away, and they're not
Hmm.
interested in negotiations, which is also fascinating from a person who, how would I want it to go if I was selling my property?
Yeah.
But needless to say, this agent made it very clear that they wanted to negotiate. So, basically don't put your best offer in. And then
Yeah.
7:30 that night, I get a text message from this person who I've not had any interactions with at all that,
Yeah.
they've got signed contracts back. And that they were more bigger than my offer and all of this. And I was
And
like, what?
we hadn't even received. So like I was saying that they had signed contract, but we'd sent through an offer, and we hadn't even got the contract back with
No,
the ability to sign. So it was a bit. It was a bit like, well,
exactly.
hang on, why have they got the contract to sign? Are you now
And I don't.
negotiating with us, or what? Where are we at here?
Exactly. So I was replying via text because this agent only communicated via text,
Which is
uh,
difficult
which
because
is very difficult.
it's okay at some point and some stages in a
Sure,
negotiation as a tool, but when you're at that early stage and we're working on a deal and
worth a
they've
couple of
got their
million.
client's best interest at heart, we've
Yes,
got our client's
ours
best interest at
exactly.
heart,
Yeah,
and we're two professionals trying to meet in the middle
to get
to
a good
get a
deal done.
deal done. And
100%.
a deal, so much can get lost in a text or a WhatsApp or, even an email, and a simple pick up the phone. It has been something, obviously, with our background in sales, and, we've dealt with multi-million dollar contracts and clients worldwide.
Yeah,
And you can't get deal, and that's what we're doing in the property space. Everything's north of a mil. This is not small amounts of money that we're
no,
dealing with, and
exactly.
it requires a little bit more TLC than just a hey, this is where we're at. Little text like,
Exactly.
let's upgrade it, guys.
So I was going to fly a text back, and I was like, no, hang on a minute.
Yeah,
I'm going to call him.
well
And
played.
so I did. And it was one of the weirdest interactions as well. And I was like, well, hang on a minute. How have you got contracts back signed? Well, I've been working at 7. It's late. And I'm like, okay, dude, again.
You message us like you're
Exactly.
replying, and if you're going to message at that time, it's a bit silly to turn around and have a bit of a teary about if you're working.
Exactly.
Oh,
And then
yeah,
honestly, the lies and the spin, my
yeah,
goodness, did that not just roll on from there?
yeah,
And then he was saying that he had 5 signed offers. And I was again, I'm confused because I've
yes,
sent an offer very early in the day and my clients still
yeah,
don't have anything to sign. So how have the other offers come in signed?
yeah,
And then he started backtracking. And then,
yeah.
oh, no, no, no. I mean, they're not for this one. And oh, goodness me. Anyway, it went round and round and round in circles. This was one of my worst performances from an agent that I've had in a long time.
Yeah,
And the selling agent, the principal who I was talking to originally, sort of was using language along the lines of transparency.
yeah,
That they want to make sure that everyone gets the best opportunity to put their best foot forward. all of these sorts of things. And then the person who he'd handed over to worked in a completely different manner.
Yes.
His actual response to me was, well, if I have to draw up a contract for every offer I receive, then I'd be sitting here drawing up contracts all night. And I was
And that's
like,
part of your job,
that's actually
Vern.
your job.
Yeah. And to point out, we're not
So,
like we're not we will call out and we champion and you know like I'm a big fan myself of how many times I tell you when I'm speaking to an agent and I've had a great experience or I've had a great experience with the team. I did it just yesterday. We won't name any time throughout this process.
no,
But calling out champions within the industry, it should be good. We all want to elevate. We all want this. There's always been that stigma attached to real estate agents. It's like car salesmen,
yeah,
and
100%.
and that's self-imposed through
Yes,
this kind of behaviour.
yes,
And to pick up on the transparency point, I mean that's something that we pride ourselves on. That's who we are through and through. And then if we hear that back and it's at odds, if they say we're going to do this and then it's at odds with that, it just leaves
makes
you
it
in this
very
really weird
hard.
spot. And then I think about that interaction that you've gone through, and then a client that doesn't have us engaged, and maybe it's their first time being a home buyer, which for a lot of people they only do it once.
Once.
If they're
Yeah,
lucky now, it's becoming harder and harder,
yeah,
and then they're there and it's spin doctor
yes,
type stuff, and it's
yes.
another term, snake oil salesman.
Oh,
And we're
yeah.
not we're not talking derogatorily about the industry as a whole, but these practices need to change. I mean, we'll do a whole episode at some point. I would love to do one about best and final
Oh, yeah.
and what that means. But I mean, that's a whole other can of worms that we can open up and delve into.
Yeah.
But that was present throughout that conversation also,
It
correct?
was. And I think the thing that's really difficult is that we are used to negotiating with these master negotiators. We are used to having all the buzzwords and the things like that around. And
Yeah.
so we've got, all that sort of experience. But when you've got people who this is their first time sometimes that they're negotiating, lots of people are not negotiators. They don't
It's not
do this
that
for a
they might
living.
not have never done it.
So difficult.
Yeah.
And then when then you have the spin and then this added extra pressure and all those sorts of things, it just makes you think about sort of what our buyers are going through. And
Yeah.
I think more than anything, what we are able to step in and do for them. And I do know that even though unfortunately we were unsuccessful, and the negotiations went on for 3 days, we did end up with our best and final
Yes.
eventually. Which again, we will definitely talk about the multiple offer situation in Queensland,
Yes.
which it's unlike any other state, but we'll definitely dive into that on another episode. And we were unsuccessful, but I do know that my clients were super happy at the back end. I did keep them up to date as to what I was dealing with, and
Oh,
they were
the
like, "I can't believe
communication.
you're having to work on a Sunday.
Yeah.
I can't believe you're having all these
That'll be
messages
another
and
episode right there.
all of those sorts of things." And so I guess, at the end of the day, that's what we were able to step in and do,
Yeah.
for our clients this week. So
Yeah.
busy weekend ahead for us. I'll be interested to check back in next week, see how we go over the weekend, and see what adventures we'll be having with agents over the weekend, I'd say, Vernon.
Very much so. There's always something to report, but yeah,
Always.
look, it's a great time to be out there. And as I said, some properties you go in, there's not many people. Some there's plenty, and it just depends on each suburb, each agent. And the better the agent, they've got more listings, and they're better to deal with and work with us to get a deal done. So yeah, we'll report back in next week with what we've been up to this weekend.
Cool. Talk to you
All right.
soon.
Good luck. Speak to you soon.